Welcome back to the V2 channel, and in today's video I'm going to be featuring a couple of products by the company ErgoBrass. Now this is a Finnish company who have come out with some wonderful support systems for the heavy brass instruments and more recently saxophone. The first product that they released that we took an interest here at Sax was a Soprano Support system, which was this really excellent mechanism that allowed the soprano to be held in its natural position with this strange contraption that sort of almost made the soprano look like it was being suspended in midair. Anyway, genius stuff, you should check that out. But what's really captured my attention in recent months has been the release of a support system for this very instrument here, the baritone saxophone and the bass saxophone. And then another one, which is to my left here on the floor, which we'll show you later, for the tenor and the alto. So we're onto serious stuff here because these are the instruments that really count for the majority of us sax players. So let's just look in some detail at the baritone bass support, which I've got here, which is a rather beautifully put together object, constructed of sort of cylindrical, telescopic tubes, if you like. So if I just slide this up and down, we can see that it's got these little holes here where the pins nicely slot in place. And you might think, well, there's a lot of range going on there. The reason being is not only is this a seated stick for the baritone and bass, but when it's at full extension, it acts as a standing support for the same instruments. So I'm just going to demonstrate this sitting down now for the purposes of this video, because I've got it broadly speaking set up at the right height for this lovely P Moriat low B flat baritone, which I'll demonstrate in a second. So let's just move it down to the position where it is the correct height for this instrument. So just in brief, the construction of this and the sort of unique idea of this support system is that what happens is, I've explained we've got the telescopic tubes here, but fixed to the top here, we have this sort of angled I should say stainless steel support here, which operates at a 90-degree angle to the rest of the support. And it actually swings around, offering the saxophone player this maneuverability when this is attached to the saxophone. And in a second, I'll show you how this attaches to the saxophone. This, for me, is the genius bit. Where we think of normal traditional support stands for heavy instruments, we think of a support stick and then perhaps just a standard, like a saxophone stand, kind of grip on the end, whereby the support would be on the bell of the instrument, creating some slight challenges for the saxophone player in terms of the balance of the instrument. But the genius thing in my book with this support system is that the connection point to the saxophone is right on the end here. So we just press this button in, and I will now demonstrate by attaching it to the top ring. Note 3 rings on this P Moriat, love that. Top ring on this B flat baritone, and you can just see me clipping that in place. And now we have a sort of pivot point on the saxophone on the strap ring as opposed to on the bell. You see where I'm going with this. So for me, it changes the game, because now the saxophone is sitting in a more natural position without doing much adjustment at all and doing barely anything with my hands. The saxophone is sitting in approximately the right position. But we can make further adjustments. We can think about where we want to put the support on the floor, how we want to arrange it in terms of our leg position. So, you know, we're all different shapes and sizes and what have you. For me, this is nicely sitting right in the center of my shoe here, and then it's sort of leaning against my calf and my inner thigh. And broadly speaking, now all I need to do is lightly tip in, sort of pivot the baritone towards myself, just a few inches, and brilliant. I mean, that felt great to me. It just took a little while just to get used to it because I've been talking for about 5 minutes or so. But I feel like I could properly settle into a big playing practice session on this baritone now. with no physical burden on my upper body at all. It's literally just a slight weight into the fingers as I pivot it this way. And as I say, we've got this flexibility and maneuverability around this area here. So I just think overall it's such a unique proposition and quite different from the stands that came before it, in terms of if you're sitting down and you're trying to take the weight off your shoulders and the back and all the usual things. This really is a genius piece of kit. As I mentioned before, we can adjust here and we can move it into a standing position, and then you have the same set of experiences. Perhaps there's just a little bit more stability sitting down. So I'm demonstrating it in its sort of optimum usage right here. But nonetheless, absolutely brilliant. The tenor one for me just works in the same way. I've positioned it sort of halfway up the foot and found a very similar angle, a similar sort of playing experience in terms of the positioning on my right thigh on a tenor. For me, alto, not so much of a problem. I would personally just use a neck strap. But for a heavier tenor, and for those of you who might have back issues, you just don't want to have that sort of cumbersome weight on your shoulders and neck for hours on end whilst you're practicing, this really is a great solution. So yeah, hats off to you, ErgoBrass, for coming up with something quite unique here. I absolutely love it.